So we're doing really well. We're about 75, 80% of the way done with everything. We've got our assignment in pretty good shape now. We've still got some things to do, so let's take a look at what's left. But we've got our title, we've got what it is, points, we've added the instructions, and now our next question is what do we do about these questions? Because the problem is right now these questions just aren't good. Simply put, they're not good questions. You could kind of just do these still without looking at the video, and there's really not much thought that goes into them. So let's take a look at how we might modify these questions. Now, this part here I think is a little bit of an art form, but there's some concepts that I think can be applied to anything. And in general, it doesn't take very much practice before the concepts start to make sense, and they can definitely improve the level of questions that people are creating for distance learning scenarios very quickly. So let's go through and kind of talk a little bit about what we might do with these questions. Now, the first question here was basically, the problem with it is that it's do you use social media too much, too little, or just right? It's just a multiple choice question. And again, you don't have to really watch the video to get it. So I've rewritten that question a little bit here, and it says, in Sinek's video, he describes many situations where he feels our society has gone out of balance with regard to cell phone usage. He argues that having a balance is important. Where do you think you are with regards to social media and cell phone usage? Do you use it too little, too much, too little? Are you pretty comfortable with your usage? So it's still essentially the same question, but what I've done in the beginning is I've created some references back to the video, because one of my goals with these questions is to create a little bit of kind of what I call pleasant discomfort with skipping the video watching. So I want to, now they're thinking, if the kids read this, they're like, in Sinek's video, he describes many situations. Oh, this question is about those many situations. Gosh, I probably should go watch it. And then he argues that having a balance is important. Well, okay, how does he do it? So I'm referencing that video because as I reference the video, the more likely the students are to assume that they really kind of have to watch it without answering these questions. And I've elaborated a little bit on that multiple choice nature where it says, where do you think you are with regards to social media and cell phone usage? So it's asking for more information. It's a better interview question other than that multiple choice nature, which follows it right here. So made it a little bit more complex and created some kind of pleasant discomfort for the idea of skipping the video watching. I've also spaced the questions out a little bit more because up here I've asked for a paragraph or two, and these questions now leave more space for that, so students are going to do that. The other thing I'd like to mention at this point too, which is actually very helpful in designing these types of questions, is that research shows that the way you write the style and tone you use in your question determines the style and tone that students will answer the question with. So if you want the students to write in an academic language, your question should be more formal and academic. If you want them to write in a more informal conversational style, make your questions informal and conversational. Students will mimic the style of the question in their answers. And so these questions are done kind of very informally, conversational style to encourage the students that, yeah, I'm looking for your thoughts and ideas and actions and, kind of in that regard there. I'm not necessarily looking for academic language in these answers. Let's take a look at the second one. The problem with the second question as originally envisioned was, how does dopamine work? And again, that's just a fact-checking Google type of answer. And one of the things, so we want to create the art form here is we want to create links back to the video, but what we don't want to do is create kind of random fact checking, because especially in a distance learning environment, students have access to everything in the internet. All this kind of rote memorization stuff, they're just going to look it up and paste it in. And so we need to push them beyond that rote memorization or rote looking up of stuff and kind of shake that a little bit and say, okay, how could you apply this to some kind of a situation? So that's what I've tried to do here with question 2, which is instead of that simple fact question, the question says, your friend says dopamine is in carrots. It helps your vision. What corrections would you make to this? So they got to kind of think about what's in dopamine about the video, what they can look up about dopamine and say, well, okay, is this true or is it not? And then can you explain in a basic sense how dopamine works and why it's important to the conversation about social media? Again, a reference back to that video, another connection back to it. So, if I haven't watched and don't know what the conversation is about social media, maybe I should go back and watch the video. And then lastly, let's take a look at our third question, which again is kind of doing the same thing here. After watching this video, what are things you will try to do differently? Are there things you will try to do differently? Why or why not? As an aside for me, I bought an alarm clock. Again, so trying to make the question a little bit more, linking it back to the video. I also put in this alarm clock reference. That's something that Sinek mentions in the video. So again, if you haven't watched the video, like, God, What's he talking about? The alarm clock? I don't know what that is. So we want to make it, again, that pleasant discomfort that it's probably going to be easier that I just watch the video than trying to guess what all this stuff is. So again, kind of connections back to that video. So the same concept applied, just make the complex, ramp them up questions a little bit more complex, an application of knowledge rather than fact checking, which just tends to annoy students, and then references back to the video to create a little bit of pleasant discomfort, if you would, that I really probably have to go watch the video. So with that having been said, let's go to our improving distance, our sample distance learning assignment, and then how might you fix these two questions in this assignment? What are these? And write similes and metaphors for each of these things. What might you do to ramp these up a little bit and make them a little bit more meaningful to the students? When you're done with that, let's drive on. We're going to take a look now. We're pretty much done with everything. We're going to take a look at some visual components to designing things that to be a little bit more effective. Off we go.